Recording in progress.
Okay, it is April 4th, 5:30 p.m. The April 4th West Jordan Planning Commission pre-meeting is called to order. We have all commissioners present except Commissioner Quinney, which I assume is probably just delayed due to the snow, so I'm sure we'll see him here. Do we have training's not today, right? So we'll just jump in and take a look at the agenda, which I did not grab. Can I borrow yours? Thank you. Commissioner Quinney is now here. Let's see. So minutes from March 21st. Any comments, questions, considerations? Great. Boulder Canyon apartment signs. Megan Jensen, you want to give us a summary?
Sure. So this is for the Boulder Canyon Apartments. They're just doing a sign development plan. Basically, there's 3 existing monument signs on their site, and they're just replacing those. They'll be in the same locations. They're just making them larger, so they'll all have an overall height of 8 feet, about 12 feet wide, and adding brick to the bases to match the apartment buildings. And yeah, that's basically it.
Any questions? Great. Thank you.
Actually, does the commission all
sorry.
know Megan? Does the commission all know Megan? Okay, so I know she's worked for the city about 5.5 months. She's an assistant planner, doing a lot of good work. So hopefully you'll be seeing more of Megan. So I know right after she was hired last October, I think we brought her briefly for an introduction, but maybe that was the council. I don't know, but yeah, council. So, but Megan's. So hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of her. So.
Commissioner Shelton had a question.
Yeah, when I was reviewing this, it looked like it's basically the exact same sign, only about 3 times larger. Then that's very rough estimate. But I guess as I was reviewing it, the question that kept popping in my head is why. And so I actually went out there and in this weather, I was still able to see and read the signs fine.
You're so brave.
And it was crazy. I mean, it was limited visibility. It really was. And the signs are very readable and easy to see from the street as you're driving by. I just don't really understand the purpose behind this, and I'd like maybe the applicant can help us with that.
Okay, so I guess we'll bring that up when we get into the regular meeting and have the applicant here. So, let's see, Wood Ranch. Ray, you're going to bring this back to us?
Oh, this is just the beginning.
Phase 1, right?
This is phase 1. So this has been a long time coming. It's been put a lot of work into it with the master development agreement, the land use map amendment, the zoning, all that, the annexation. So that's just the warm up. Now we're getting to the actual platting phase of this process. And so tonight you'll be looking at the first phase of the development. And we'll walk you through what's being proposed, what's on the table.
Sounds great. Did anybody have any questions from the packet or for Ray? Okay, Larry, text amendment?
And so in 2021, in my zeal to change the map for the IOZ, I failed to amend the text. So it didn't make a lot of sense because it referred to a lot of D, E, and F on the map, and we don't have a D, E, and F on the map. So it's just cleared it up, so the ordinance will be usable at this point, and it took out the one table that had industrial uses, since we no longer have an IOZ in any industrial. It won't be an overlay in any industrial area, so I don't think industrial uses are appropriate for any of the area around 7800 South or practically any of the areas that are left. And so with that, do you have any questions for me? So we're not amending the map, we're just doing the ordinance. We should have done it all last time, but 2 years late's better than never, I guess, huh?
Any questions for Larry? Okay, let's see, there's no training today. Is there anything else we need to discuss, coordinate? Okay. We will, it's not adjourn. What are we doing with the pre-meeting? Close the pre-meeting and we'll be back at 6. All right, we will call to order the April 4th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. All commissioners are present. First item on the agenda is approved minutes for March 21st, 2023. Commissioner Quinney
I move that we approve the minutes as contained in the packet.
and Commissioner Wynn.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Quinney, second by Commissioner Wynn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second business item, Boulder Canyon apartment signs. As a business item, do we discuss this or does it go? Okay. So this is 5517 West Lake Canyon Drive sign development plan and a PC zone Allied Electric sign and awning. Tracy Barker applicant. Is the applicant present? Would you like to come up and just address us really quick and let us know what your project is? Please.
Okay, so they're proposing removing the smaller monument signs that they have existing now and putting in some 8x12 signs for better visibility and for better look.
Okay, thank you. I know Commissioner Shelton had a question related to that.
Yeah, I went by there as I was reading the application and the information about it. I went by the location, and even in this weather with the limited visibility, I felt like the signs looked great and were very visible. And I guess my concern as a citizen is I don't feel like we need larger and bigger signs in our city if the ones that are there are doing the job. And I don't know if you can address that or talk about that.
I just know that they wanted to go bigger for better visibility for how they felt on them. And I know we're allowed one that large. The other two, they just want to add on because of the streets that turn into those areas. So I do know they are allowed one that's larger.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Appreciate your time. Megan, would you like to share with us your thoughts on this and run us through the application?
Sure. So, yeah, they're just proposing. Here you can see the locations. There would be two off of 5600 West and then one off of Ranches Loop Road. They're not changing the locations of any of the signs, they're just replacing them with the larger signs. These just show the current signs and then what they are proposing. And this last slide just shows what the proposed signs would look like. So they would have an overall height of 8 feet and a width of 12 feet, and they would put the base with brick on the bottom to match the apartment buildings nearby. So,
Thank you. For our benefit, along with maybe anybody else that might be listening or paying attention, could you share what is it specifically with this application that makes it a permitted use that means it needs to come back to us or needs to come to the Planning Commission?
yeah, so they are allowed under the sign ordinance that sign standards that they could have one large monument sign this size, but it does call for, if the site wants 3, that they need to have a sign development plan. So that's why it's being reviewed by you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shelton, did that answer your question?
Yes, I feel like if the ordinances allow for one large monument sign, that's what we should allow. And I don't feel there's any need to go outside of the ordinance in this case.
Commissioner Quinney?
Thank you. I've been looking through here. I don't see, what was I going to say? Anything to discuss is like, I'm assuming there's no visibility issues. I didn't drive out there. there's no visibility, right? We're not going to have any issues with coverage. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is fine. I have no problem with a business, whether it's an apartment building or whether it's a retail office wanting to promote themselves, and anything we can do to help them better create visibility, I'm all for it.
Commissioner Wynn?
In the staff report, it says that these signs can be up to 78 square feet. In the renderings, it's showing a sign of 96 or so square feet. Am I misunderstanding things, or is that the fact?
My understanding is that what they have there includes the base of that they have, the brick base. My understanding is that was it 70? Yeah, the sign area can be 78 square feet, which the sign itself does
Right.
follow.
So brick
And the
base
chart does say the architectural elements shall not be considered part of the sign area, right? Yeah.
All right, any further discussion or emotion? Commissioner Quinney?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move the Planning Commission approve the Boulder Canyon Apartment sign plan located at 5517 West Slate Canyon Drive in a PC zone with the requirements of approval listed in this report.
Commissioner Thomas?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Quinney, second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 5-1 with Commissioner Shelton being the nay vote.
Yeah.
I just keep, I keep getting, it's the snow. I'm being distracted by the snow.
Just like bankers, we have calculators to do our math, right? Engineers, I
Exactly.
got you, buddy.
All right, we'll move on to the first public hearing of the evening with final action by the Planning Commission, and that is the Wood Ranch Plat 1 subdivision at 7400 South, SR 111, with a preliminary major subdivision plat, preliminary sub-area plan in a PCH zone. Third Cadence, Gary Langston, applicant, with Ray McCandless on the city side. So we will ask the applicant, please feel free, come up, let us know what you're looking at doing here and why you're developing the middle of the development first.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Gary Langston. I represent the master developer, Third Cadence, who is the group that effectively runs the Wood Ranch development as it goes forward. What we're proposing to you tonight is really what constitutes our model home park, or our first 33 units is what we're proposing. Has a little bit of landscaping to go with that, and quite a bit of infrastructure. The very first thing that I'm happy to hear that you guys have actually zoomed in on is that we're building quite a ways off the beaten path. Our experience is that most developers would tend to build right along the frontage because that's the cheapest and the easiest. In our case, we didn't feel like that would actually give people the right perspective and environment in which they'll live. So we've decided to move quite a ways inward and have our model home park really in the center of the development. We're, I don't know, probably 2,500 feet west of U111. There were a few reasons why we wanted to do that. Predominantly just north of the model home areas where we'll have what we call our base camp, which is where we have our amenities. We'll have our bistro, which is a part of the MDA. There's also a community hall that will be for purposes of the HOA and residents, and then lastly a pool. Those are located specifically in a location that was very important to the Wood family, and it was something that was important to us to sort of have the nostalgia of the location. And so that's really what started to drive the location of the model home park and what you've seen here today. The two roads that connect back to U111 are predominantly to provide fire access or for emergency services, although we expect that the majority of the traffic will leave in and out of, we called it Wilder Road, or it's 7400 South on this map. As you're probably aware, Wood Ranch can have up to about 3,000 units in the build out of the project over 10 different phases. Phase 10 is an option for us to buy in the future should the Wood family decide to actually develop that property. That may or may not occur. However, all of the engineering and the master planning has been done such that that area is included. This plan includes, I think it's 9 different segments that we will build. So it includes townhomes, a variety of single family, ranging from, I think, 37 feet is the narrowest, all the way up to 70. We do have really 2 additional single family segments that we can include in the plan, but they won't come till much later as we get closer to the foothills. Those are the larger lots. We want to create value for the community, and we'll release those later. And then really our final segment would be some apartments along the frontage of U-111. We will also have an elementary school. It's not a part of this plat, but we are under contract with Jordan School District to sell them a 10-acre site for an elementary school that will be located at approximately 70th South in U-111. Ironically, it's the very northern boundary of their district. I think their boundary goes to 6600 or to the West Valley City boundary. There's lots I could share with you about the project. We've included a couple of park lots. We call them P lots. That's sort of a carryover from the old daybreak nomenclature. Really what that means is that's our manicured landscape. The really sexy acronym TDOS 101, that's, no offense Duncan, but that's something an attorney came up with. And it it is really just meant to represent transferred development open space is what it stands for, and that's the property that will ultimately be owned and maintained by the city once it's properly accepted and transferred following the completion of the improvements. There are lots of details I could share with you. A lot of it you already have in your staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have that aren't there, or you're just curious to know more about the project. But we're excited to get started, and we have our grading permit. If it stops snowing for a minute, we could get moving on that, and this is the work that will follow that.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Wynn?
Where's the water coming from to support this development?
Good question. So as a part of our master development agreement, when we originally met with the city, we understood that there are only about 900 units that could be served by West Jordan City for this project. So we subsequently structured an agreement with Kearns Improvement District, and they will serve roughly the northern 2/3 of the project, or about up to 2,200 units. And then West Jordan City will serve up to 900 units, or really the southern third. So Kearns Improvement District is the water provider and the sewer provider for those units, and it will be served by 2 of their zones. It's Zone D and Zone E, which for I guess the terminology that you guys use as a city, that's really Zone 5, or excuse me, Zone 6 and Zone 7, okay, or their equivalent zones. So they're the service provider. Our source for those will come from 2 transmission lines, one that we build that connects back to Zone D, and a pipeline that's extended across U-111, and the other one is a transmission line that goes up the hill and connects to the tank that they completed a couple of years ago.
All right, thank you. We will invite you back if there's additional questions in a minute. Ray?
Thank you. So again, tonight you're looking at 2 things: the preliminary subdivision plat approval for this first subdivision plat, and then also the sub-area plan that accompanies it. So, and again, we're looking for approval for those 2 items. I don't know, there's a whole lot more to add, other than one of the conditions of approval that we have listed in there is that they not be allowed to submit a final application until they get UDOT approval for connection onto U-111. And in thinking through that and talking to the applicant, I think we'd be okay with modifying that or changing that approval condition to read that we won't grant final approval, which is on administrative level, until they get full UDOT approval for connection onto U-111. So we don't have any issue with or concerns with changing that. Again, for this, the alleys, just to refresh your memory on this one, with the master development agreement, the alleys or lanes are going to be city-owned but HOA maintained, and there are a couple of those that are in this plat. I think just highlighted the ones that are the townhomes, and then the ones that are the P-lots that Gary was talking about earlier. The other streets will be city-owned and maintained. So if you have any questions regarding this plat, it's pretty straightforward. I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, Commissioner Shelton.
Is there did I misread or misunderstand? There's a lot that the developers are giving to the city, and the city's going to make a city park out of that, or?
Oh, as part of this overall development in the PCH zone, and
The TDOS?
it's that TDOS space. And those are typically it'll be dedicated to the city, but those are typically on the steep or undevelopable parcels. In addition, in the PCH zoning district, it requires a minimum of 25% open space.
That's a common thing in most developments, right?
Yeah, it is.
Thanks.
And the way that's set up in the city code plus the development agreement is then it's these proportional amounts that come in with each phase, so that by the time the whole development is built out, then there's all of that special open space. So.
I had three questions, and it sounds like I think you've already answered them, but I'm going to ask them and then state what I think I heard and see if I'm correct. So I picked up on the city-owned but HOA maintained alleyways. I was going to ask about the purpose behind that, but it really comes down to that's what the master development agreement says.
Yeah, and there's a lot of balancing too that goes between, if they're not city owned, then we don't get B&C road funds for them. So there's kind of trying to balance and look through multiple filters. How do we capture the tax revenue that we're entitled to, and then who can functionally take care of it? And, so it's basically balancing all of those issues together.
Second question is, what are the city plans with the open space? And I think you answered that by saying most of this is the hilly, steep, undevelopable area. The city would just maintain that in an open space setting. Final question, somewhat related but not totally, is as I look at the overall plan, people trying to move eastward are all going to be driven down to 7800 South, which is already a pretty busy road. What other future plans do we have to try to alleviate some of that east-west traffic?
There's 7,000 plus 7,400. There's a lot of other connections to other developments that are in our transportation master plan. But eventually I know that a lot of those other roads, isn't it 7,000 and 7,400 that are both eventually going to be through roads
Yeah,
to
there
the
will be
east?
other connections as this develops out, but for right now, the connections will be off U-111. So there'll be some to the north as well and south.
So 7,000, 7,400, and thank you for letting me take the time on this. They both have to cross Mountain View first, right?
Right.
So there's some development there, and then additional developments to get them out to this point. Thank you, Commissioner Quinney.
Mine's an easy one for you, Ray. I'm trying to remember when we first heard about this. I know you guys heard about it before. I remember we were in that community room over there with the city council. But when did we first hear about this project?
2.5 years ago.
Is that all? Feels like
Is
it's
that
been
about
longer.
Was it 4?
Yeah, that seems a little bit more.
4.
Like dog years, there's Ray years.
Like I would imagine, like maybe you probably were here. At least only three of us were here when that first got proposed to us. Just taking this. I'm glad to see that we're finally moving. I'm sure you guys are too.
I ended up picking up just a part of it. I was here when we were talking about the MDA, but I wasn't here at the very beginning of it. So, any further questions for staff? All right. Well, this has been noticed as a public hearing. So we will now open this meeting up to the public. Feel free to come up to the podium. I'll have 3 minutes to address. Please state your name for the record. Is there anybody online? Okay, if you're online, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you if you wish to speak on this item. All right, well, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Quinney.
I had one other question for Ray. I forgot. You mentioned a change in the condition, but as I understand it, number 7 is what you said, right? That's the way you want it to be read?
It was the last condition.
Because it just says required before final approval is accepted. That's what you wanted, right?
It's, yeah, as part of the final approval, not, I think the way I've got it written is before.
So you wanted to
The
say
final-
as part of the final approval?
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure we get it correct.
So just maybe a clarification for my purposes. That means that they can submit the application for final approval, and as part of that approval process, that's when the UDOT stuff can come in.
Correct. Yeah.
Commissioner Quinn, you still
I'm
have
just
the floor.
waiting to see if anybody else has anything else to say, or I'll just do this. Based on the findings set forth in the staff report, I move that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary subdivision plat and preliminary sub-area plan for Wood Ranch Phase 1 subdivision located at approximately 7400 South, SR 111 in the PCH MDA Planned Community Hillside Master Development Agreement Zone with the requirements listed in the conditions of approval section on the staff report, with the one amendment to number 7, striking the word before and adding the words as part of the, I guess I'll include that.
Perfect. Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that motion and just want to make a comment. I'm glad it is finally starting. I know we've been, like I said, several of us have been through this process for a few years now, so.
All right, motion from Commissioner Quinney, a second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. This was one or two motions? Just the one? Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item then. Text amendment for interchange overlay zone to amend the 2009 West Jordan City Municipal Code, Section 13-6K4B, interchange overlay zone, Table 1 uses with citywide applicability. City of West Jordan is the applicant. We'll turn the time over to Larry.
I didn't get my PowerPoint posted, so it's still scrolling, but let's see if it will come up in a second. A few years back, I think Commissioner Quinney was on the Planning Commission. Maybe all of you were. I don't think so, though. But the Planning Commission and City Council wanted to work on an interchange overlay zone to better deal with areas around. Let's see if I can get this to work. Around the interchange of Mountain View Corridor, because they felt there was wasn't being properly addressed. The uses that would be most appropriate around 90th South, 7800 South, more particular. And so the IOZ ordinance was crafted and approved by the Planning Commission and City Council at that time. In 2021, there was some amendments to the IOZ. The City Council and Planning Commission felt that they wanted to, well, let me back up. But first, it consisted of areas A, B, C, D, and E. The council felt that the area, if you see on the map with the big red X, means that it's not applicable anymore. The area A, they wanted to remove that. They felt that that was should be industrial type development and left to that type of use, and it really wasn't conducive to using the IOZ. And then B, which is on the west side of Mountain View Corridor, would be also more conducive to industrial type uses, and that's the area around Papa Pita, Snugs, I think somewhat around Dan in that area. However, it did leave the rest of the areas, and so the names were changed, or the letters were changed to A, B, and C. A being, I think, entirely owned, maybe not, but mostly owned by the redevelopment agency of West Jordan City. And it currently is undeveloped property. C is part of the Highlands Master Plan. That's where Home Depot's being built, that type of thing. Along with, both C areas. B would be kind of the area around Park Valley. B on the west side of Mountain View Corridor was the development at one time that was called Bowman's Arrow, which is no longer being proposed. It was probably the most contested area during the whole general plan process. And then C is part of the Highlands, or the area in the Highlands Master Plan called the Coldstream Commons. So as I said earlier, areas D and E were taken off the map. However, the corresponding ordinance wasn't corrected. And the inset on the right kind of shows area A now, and I've changed the wording in the ordinance. This is 90th South to Mountain View, a regional commercial area. So regional commercial would be the same types of uses that would be allowed at Jordan Landing or SC3 type uses. The primary intent of this area is for regional commercial uses in all parts of the area, and the secondary intent is for higher density housing at the north end of the area as a transition from commercial uses to the single family homes to the north of 8600 South. And as the Planning Commission's probably aware, if you look at that inset, on the east side would be Copper Hills High School. The new bridge that is going in directly north of there is low density single family homes. And so the area can either be commercial, but the only area that really would be approved for higher density housing in area A would be to the extreme north, right next to the bridge. Probably the limit going south would be the old, well, I shouldn't say old new, but the former New Bingham Highway diagonal that is no longer there. It's still UDOT owned property, or maybe Duncan, it's been transitioned to the city. I can't remember. And then B, area B, 7800 South and Mountain View, and that would be the area to the north of 7800 South, is to provide for hospital, medical office, and neighborhood commercial. That was one of the big comments, is that everyone that was making comments wanted to see more commercial west of Mountain View Corridor in Area B. So before it was only would be higher density housing there. So it allows for hospital, medical office, neighborhood commercial, and additional higher density housing to the west of Mountain View Corridor, and housing mixed with limited commercial uses to the east of Mountain View Corridor. As you see, Area B straddles Mountain View. So I think that meets the intent of what the general plan will reflect when it's adopted, that would allow more commercial uses around that corridor rather than just a whole bunch of housing. And then the final change would basically remove area C, D, E, and F, the letters, and the uses in this use table would now be permitted uses, which is multifamily condo, condominiums, townhomes, mixed use, single family homes. And then the one that will be stricken from the use table is light manufacturing and warehousing, which would only be allowed in that former area A, and so that will be removed. So this really the focus of this ordinance change is to clarify the map amendment of 2 years ago and to be a little more poignant on the uses that are allowed in each of the areas based on conversation from the general plan meetings. Do you have any questions for me? And bear in mind, this is only the tool. There's only one area in the city currently that has been zoned with the IOZ, and that is at the very south end of the Copper End development where the Furniture Row retail business will be going. And actually last week when Ray was on vacation, I took quite a number of calls on that area as far as commercial uses, so that's starting to heat up. As I don't know whether it's because Home Depot is building there or if the area is just becoming ripe now for more retail development, but whatever, people are becoming interested. So, do you have any questions for me?
Questions for staff? I've got one, and it's on this particular page. For the single-family detached home, including small lot single-family detached homes, do we need to add something in that third column that says see building type section for standards? So it's not.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do. I'll add that if you can include that in the motion. Then we can go to the council with that if you want it.
Is that the proper
Yeah.
text?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, no further comments. This has been noticed as a public hearing with the recommendation going to City Council for final action. So we will open this up to the public to come up and speak for 3 minutes or raise your hand online. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public session, public hearing, excuse me. Bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion. Do you have the motion? There we are. All right, Commissioner Thomas.
All right, help me with the correction on this, though. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report, and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for this application with the following corrections on,
If you say see building types
Yeah.
section for standards.
yes, that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Perfect. We've got a motion by Commissioner Thomas, a second from Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Larry, thank you for doing business in West Jordan. Commissioner Quinney,
I move to adjourn.
we are adjourned.
I think